it's both fascinating and terrifying at the same time to see on this clown planet the countries at varying stages of the agenda. And when I say the agenda, what's the agenda? Well, it's become increasingly more obvious, especially post-2020, that there's some form of agenda, whatever you want to call it, going on. And if we were to look, and these are the obvious examples, I know, and they will keep getting used, but they need to, because this is the reality of where we are. But the obvious examples, North Korea, okay? China. From a social credit perspective, mass surveillance and people being generally more controlled than they ever have been, right? Sort of barcode on your freaking tattooed on your neck or your head type stuff. Yeah, or you know, look at the footage yourself. North Koreans like having to you know, completely overreact or cry in sadness over the political class, the ruling class, because they've put so much fear into their society that if they don't do that, it's literally down to survival. Yeah, whether you even survive. Yeah. Now, when we look at countries like the UK and the US, and let's focus on them. I'm going to use the US. Gavin Newsom and Tucker Carlson firing out a very, very relevant warning in relation to all of this. I'm going to play some footage in just a second. But I just wanted to think about and focus where we are, each individual country, where we are in the various stages of the agenda. Focus on the UK and the US. And the idea or the notion that when it comes to the ruling class, political class, people like Gavin Newsom, and I've got plenty of examples here in the UK too, why wouldn't they, and this is a serious question, right? Why wouldn't they want it where citizens are literally sycophantic and petrified? And this is in comparison, of course, to people being free, people having free speech, people debating, and because of that free speech, being able to criticize and question. If there was any ounce of psychopathy in you or sociopathic tendencies or any sort of nefarious side to your personality, and you found yourself in a high position, a ruling position, a position in the state, why wouldn't you want that? I mean, it's a serious question, isn't it? And when you really start to consider that, and then how certain agendas in regards to a frickin' barcode tattooed on your head or your neck, treated literally like cattle and controlled, when you also consider that positions like CEO and high-level positions that are related around power, when you consider all that, a lot of psychopaths are in those positions because of the levels of power, it makes even more sense. So anyway, like I said, let's get into this and have a look at what Tucker Carlson is saying about California and Newsom.
The state of California, like 2 weeks ago, 10 days ago, 8 days ago, something like that, has passed a law in the state legislature, both chambers of the state legislature. It awaits a signature from Gavin Newsom that would ban hate speech on the internet in California. Hate speech. Now, how do they define hate speech? Actually,
good question. And it is. That's the question on many people's minds. Like, how do you define that? Who gets to define it? And actually, Tucker here does have a definition.
Have the definition. I actually wrote it down because I was so shocked by it that this is happening. The state of California, if Gavin Newsom signs this law, and he has until October 13th to do it, People will be fined if the censors determine that speech constitutes, and we're quoting now, violence, intimidation, or coercion. What's intimidation or coercion? Right. Right. Or coercion based on race, religion, gender, sexual orientation, immigration status, or other protected characteristics. Obviously, white Christian men are not covered under that. And so the society becomes ever more hierarchical, with a Brahmin class and untouchables at the bottom, the opposite of the country all of us over 50 grew up in, that had an egalitarian spirit where some were rich, some were poor, some were smart, some were dumb, some had good jobs, others were unemployed, but all of us were considered equal under the law and equal in the eyes of God.
And nowadays, some are more equal than others, right?
And that concept is the basis of a stable society, any stable society, and it was the basis of stability in this country. And laws like this and the attitudes that give birth to them, to laws like this, have made it wildly unstable. Wobbly, it's so unstable. So as of October 13th, that could become law. Now, that's a censorship law. Now, they'll say, no, we're actually getting the platforms to censor. Well, right, you're getting someone else to do the job for you, but if you hire a hitman and he carries out the hit, you're the murderer. He participated in it, but you hired him. And that's exactly what's going on here. The state of California, under Gavin Newsom, is about to, we think, censor the opinions of Americans, not to protect anybody, but to shield themselves from criticism so they can continue to do what they want to do in secret.
And the huff there at the end really does sum it up, really, doesn't it? And where does this go? There's so many question marks over everything that Tucker just mentioned there in regards to what defines it, who gets to decide it. And we are facing our very own battles here, believe me, in the UK. And obviously with Trump coming in again, and for a lot of people, it relieved a lot of anxiety, a lot of fears, a lot of worries about things like free speech. But it appears in each individual state, and dependent on the individuals and political leanings within that, it can change, it can vary. And California, Newsom's California seems to be leading the way in regards to everything that Tucker just mentioned there. And there's obviously a lot of debate about, how you'd even enforce this type of stuff. I mean, you think about, the division between California and other states. What is it? How are they going to track that? People posting memes like this, and I'll come on to this in just a second, but people posting what might be defined as hate speech. How do they define the people within California and outside? And, there's all of that. But I brought this up because, it really brings about questions about the future in regards to, you're not able to criticize, and are you even able to post memes and, even jokes and comedy? These are the first things that are attacked at these sort of times, right? Journalism, comedy, free speech. And, let's not forget misinformation as well. So let's put a bit of clarity on this. Did California ban plastic straws? I don't know. I don't think so. But if you go into food service, apparently you have to ask for them. So I believe you can still get them. Anybody in California, maybe you'll be able to help us out. But I'll go back to that original point, guys. When it comes to certain individuals in regards to how they think, in regards to how much sympathy they have, in regards to how much they value things like freedom and free speech, people in various places, in positions in state, in positions in power, think very differently, have different levels of empathy. And for the individuals who have low to no empathy, who don't value things like freedom and don't want things questioned or debated, I ask again, why wouldn't they want that North Korean style? Ah! But people are literally petrified. What do you think? Ta-ta.